You know, I'm thinking about going solar. Talking with several different companies. You guys all seem the same to me. Tell me, why should I go with you?
First of all, I'm here to listen to you.
No, why should I go with you? Why should I go solar? I'm looking at solar.
I understand.
Why should I go with you?
Because I want to hear what your needs are.
Mm.
I want to understand it.
Mm.
And then I can help you find the best solution.
Hmm. Tell me, why should I go with you?
I will be with you throughout the process. And someone you can call if you have problems or.
Tell me, why should I go with you?
Well, you said you were looking at a number of different solar companies. What is it that you're looking for?
Okay, can you three stand for a second? Okay, who's your, well here, hold this and pass it around. Who's your biggest competitor? Sometimes you just lose deals with, no, I know we all have egos in here, we all say we never lose deals. But who's your biggest competitor?
Sunrun.
Sunrun. If I asked a representative from Sunrun the same question I asked you, that I was looking around for solar, I'm looking at different companies, and I asked them, why should I go with them? What do you think they would say?
We were Costco.
What do you think they would say?
If you asked.
If I asked them the same question, I said, why should I go with you? What do you think they would say?
We're the best.
Really? Okay. Who's your biggest competition?
Freedom Solar?
If I asked them the same question, then I'm looking around several different companies, and I said, why should I go with you? What do you think they would say?
Got the best price.
Okay. And with you, what do you think they would say? Your biggest competition?
Probably run down a checklist of all the things that are their features and benefits.
So basically, what I hear all of you saying in your mind is that in your prospect's viewpoint and their mind, you all sound the same. Could that be a problem for you? Okay. Now, if I asked you to describe sales or selling in one word, got a clicker thing here? Oh. Someone's talking about 9 levels. I'm just at 7th level here. Okay. Well, actually, I just blew it. If I asked you, don't look at that. If I asked you to describe the word sales or selling in one word, just ignore what you saw there. What would that word be? Somebody tell me. Don't tell me that word up there.
Trust.
Trust what?
Influence. Emotion.
I like that. Influence.
Relationship.
Opportunity. Relationships.
Guide emotion.
You guys are a lively crowd.
Choosing.
Oh, I like that. All right. What if we took everything all of you just said and we wrapped it up into one word, and that was word you just saw 20 seconds ago, and that word was change. Write this down. All selling is change. All sales are about one thing only, and that is change. So whether your prospects want something better or they're moving away from pain, it's all about change. It's about how good you are in getting your prospects to view that in their mind, that by them changing their situation, that means going solar. By them doing that, that is far less risky for them than them doing nothing at all, staying in the status quo, their problems stay the same, and nothing ever changes. Which is more risky? Now, here's your problem. Human beings don't like change. What? Jeremy, think about that for a second. All selling is change, yet human beings don't like change. And why do we not like change? Well, we especially do not like change. It especially causes us to feel uncomfortable when it's initiated by some pushy salesperson who's ready to pitch their product or their solution early on in the conversation. And repeatedly, human behavior shows that we value something that is familiar to us, even though we don't like it that much. Think power companies. over something that is new and foreign to us, think your industry. Right? Are you with me there? Okay, now, how are we going to combat that? What are we going to do for that? Has anybody ever had a relative or a friend that was in like an abusive relationship?
Yeah.
Raise your hand. Okay. And you ever wondered why they were in that relationship, but they obviously didn't like it, but why do they keep going back? Because they're afraid of what? Change. They're afraid of the unknown. So how do we help them overcome that? That's what you're going up against every single prospect you talk to in some form or the other. So here's how we do that. One thing we have to understand is that you're not selling the thing. You're selling the results of what that thing does. In your case, you're not selling them solar. You're not selling them solar panels. You're selling them the results of what that solar does, right? And what are some of those results? Maybe a locked-in rate. That's what you're selling. Saving them money. That's what you're selling. Maybe them eventually not having to build. That's what you're selling. You're selling the results of what that thing does, not the thing itself. Now, here's a question I have for each of you. And I want you to be serious about this. How are you going to have a competitive advantage over everyone else in the next 12 months? If you say the same things, if you ask the same questions, what's going to set you apart? How are you going to have that competitive advantage? Everybody talks about this recession that's coming up, and all these people are going to lose their jobs. A lot of salaried positions are going to lose their jobs. And guess where they're going to go to get hired? Straight commission jobs, because they don't have any other choice. And so there's going to be a flood of new what? Salespeople. Right? Okay, so how are you going to compete with them? So the ones who will own this upcoming market, the ones who will make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, if not more than what you are making right now in this room today, are the ones who simply know how to best communicate with their prospects, period. The ones who understand what to say and ask that triggers their prospects to want to engage, to want to open up, to go below the surface, rather than trying to get rid of you. Now, here's what we're going to cover today. How do we do this? How do we get you to a different level than what you've experienced before, even if you're already doing well? Today we're going to talk about 3 steps to becoming the trusted authority, the expert in your prospect's mind, so you dominate your field, your market in the next 12 months and beyond. Number 1, write this down. Let me write this down. Number 1 is becoming a problem finder and problem solver, not a product pusher. Product pushers don't do that well anymore. This is not 1985 boiler room selling. Number 2, asking the right questions, but at the right time, especially with the right tone. Well, what are the right questions? Are you sure you're asking the right questions? Do you know when to clarify and probe off their answers to take them into their emotional state? And what's the right tone to ask certain questions? Because there's some parts of your sales process where the questions have to be more of a curious tone. Can you walk me through? That's a curious tone. Now there's other parts of your sales process and other questions you have to ask that's more of a challenging or skeptical tone. And then there's other parts of your sales process that you have to ask in more of a concerned tone. A tone that shows more empathy. Well, how do you know which questions to do that with? Number 3, eliminating sales resistance. How do you cause your prospects to let their guard down and go below the surface and tell you their real problems? Because you might have the greatest questions on planet Earth, but do your prospects are like, oh, well, they've got great questions, I'm just going to go ahead and answer all of them. You know they emotionally shut down a lot of times when you get on Zoom with them, don't you? Even though they showed up. How does that make sense? Why do they do that? What's triggering that? So we're going to focus on that. How do you get them to let their guard down where they go below the surface and they completely open up to you? All right, now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you, well, here's what I'm going to share. I'm going to share with you a little bit of my background. Because my background relates to what is necessary if you're wanting to take your income, even if you're already doing well, to a level that most salespeople only dream about. Okay, so I got started in sales 22 years ago as a broke, burned out college student, and I got my first job selling home security systems door to door. Now, who in here has sold door to door? That way I can see who I'm dealing with. Okay. Ooh, yeah, okay. Brothers and sisters. All right. And the company hired me. And I think a lot of you know when you get a door-to-door sales job, they give you a script. They gave me a couple books by the sales gurus. And they drive you out in a van in the middle of the neighborhood, a not so safe neighborhood. And they basically kick you out of the van and say, go make some sales, it'll be easy. We'll pick you up after dark. And I still remember I was the last one being dropped off at the big van. We're in the neighborhood, so I was the last one dropped off. And I still remember looking back. I'm a 21-year-old kid. I'm looking back at my sales manager. His name was X name, and he said, Jeremy, don't forget, when they open the door, show them how excited you are. Show them you really believe in the product and you're really enthusiastic about it, and they're just going to believe it. I'm like, that makes complete sense, because if I'm excited about the product, if I believe in the product, I mean, that's going to radiate to them, and they're just going to somehow magically believe in it too. And I started knocking on doors, and I started talking about my features and benefits and how we had the best this and the number one this, and I was always going to be there to meet their needs, and we had the best company and the best owners and the best prices and blah, 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 blah. And I started noticing from the very first store, I started getting all these objections. What? They didn't tell me about that. We don't need it, Jeremy. Your price is too high. We already talked with somebody from your company. We're not interested. I need to think it over. I don't make rash decisions. I'm not going to buy anything today. I need to pray about it. I need to talk with my spouse. Can you call me back in a week, a month, a year later? Who in here gets some of those objections? Okay. Well, finally got to a tipping point about 7 to 8 weeks in of nonstop rejection and objections, barely making sales, because when you're in a straight commission sales job and you don't make any sales, what happens? You don't make any money. My friends who were working at McDonald's minimum wage, who were in college, were making more bank than I was. Okay, serving flipping burgers at that point. And I remember about 7 to 8 weeks in of that nonstop rejection. I remember on a Friday evening, it's like still so clear to me. I remember I was standing on the curb waiting to get picked up about 10:30 at night. I had worked 12 hours that day and made 0 sales. I remember the sweat of the hot, this is almost 4th of July, that weather, how humidity, you know what I'm talking about? Just the sweat rolling down my chest and my back. I remember my legs just like totally worn out. They felt like Joe. I still remember like rubbing my feet into the hot concrete, the asphalt. I made 0 sales. In fact, I worked that entire week and made 0 sales, so I made $0. I remember bending over thinking like, maybe selling just wasn't for me. Have you ever felt that way yourself? Have you ever looked at your bank account and noticed you had more going in? Like more going out than was coming in? That's where I was at. Now I remember my sales manager at Same picked me up that day and he popped in a Tony Robbins CD. Crazy thing is, 22 years ago, people listen to things called CDs. It's insane. And Tony said something like this. I could be completely butchering it, but this is how I remember it. He said, you will fail for the simple reason you don't learn the right skills necessary to succeed. You will fail if you don't learn the right skills necessary to succeed. And he went on to say, everybody's taught skills. But he said the people who fail are the ones who are not taught the right ones. And it was suddenly like this 21-year-old kid, the light bulb went off in my head. It was like divine intervention from the heavens itself. The sales gods were looking down at me. That maybe there was a difference in skill level. That maybe there were certain skills that worked more effectively than other skills. I'd never thought of that concept before. That maybe what the company was training and what I was learning from what I now call the old sales gurus, maybe they just weren't the right skills anymore. Maybe they were just outdated. Maybe they just didn't work as effectively as they once did. Now, here was my major dilemma. You see, at the same time I was doing this, while I was studying the gurus and the books they gave me, and I love all these people up here, I noticed that a lot of the sales techniques that they taught in their books and their programs would work. And when I used them, I would make some sales. But I also noticed when I would use a lot of their techniques, they didn't work very well at all. In fact, I noticed a lot of times when I used techniques, I would actually trigger more sales resistance. I would actually cause the prospect to emotionally shut down, where they give me like 3 or 4 word answers for my questions. I would actually trigger more objections. I actually lost more sales than I made using the techniques. You ever went through like a sales training program from a guru and you started applying it, you're like, that doesn't work at all. Well, that's where I was at. Now, at the same time, I was in college. Like Jim was talking about, my major was behavioral science and human psychology, which is really, if you peel back the layers, it's the study of the brain and how we make decisions, behavioral patterns. And my professors, they were teaching us that the most persuasive way to communicate was over here. Anybody heard of Robert Cialdini? He was one of my professors, okay? Books like Influence, Persuasion, all right? I was also learning, that was the first time in the early 2000s they were like, had online courses. It was like this new concept. So I was learning like psychology from NYU professors and just other major professors around the different universities across the country. And my professors, behavioral science, were saying the most persuasive way to communicate is over here. The sales gurus in their books and programs were saying it's over here. It was like completely opposite. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. So I'm like, how do I take the theory of behavioral science and the way the brain makes decisions to say yes or no to something, and how do I wrap it into my sales process? So I started learning how to do that because I know you, like me, want to provide a great lifestyle for your family as well. So I didn't have a choice. I was pretty much broke at that point. So I started learning how to use techniques that work with human behavior, that were causing my prospects to pull me in rather than me trying to push them forward. And overnight, selling became very, very easy and extremely profitable. Now, why did I tell you all that mumbo jumbo about me? Because nobody cares about me in this room. You want to care about who? Yourself. You're a human being. That's just the way humans react, right? Even though we say that. The reason why I told you that is I want you to imagine me right down here at rock bottom, almost quit sales. 4.5 years later, I was making multiple 7 figures a year in commissions as a W-2 salesperson. I didn't own the company. 4 years before, I couldn't sell anything. It was all because I didn't have the right skills yet. You see, unfortunately for me, I wasn't born out of my mother's womb with advanced questioning skills. Who in here was born with advanced questioning skills? Oh, no one. Okay. I wasn't born out of my mother's womb with advanced tonality skills. I wasn't born out of my mother's womb with advanced objection handling and prevention skills. I had to learn those skills. I had to acquire those skills. So if I acquire those skills, a kid who grew up in the middle of Missouri on a cattle ranch outside of a town of less than 800 people can learn that, what does that mean for each of you? I'm assuming, just going out of the limb, that maybe, possibly, potentially, you can acquire more skills as well, right? You can make 2, 3, 4, 5+ times more than what you even thought you made. Now, how are we going to do that together? Let's get into some stuff. All right. Step number 1, becoming a problem finder and problem solver, not a product pusher. Now, why are you in sales? Can I ask that question? Why are you in sales? Somebody tell me, why are you in sales?
Freedom.
Make money, freedom, what else?
Help people.
Help people, what else? Leverage, what else?
Flexibility.
It's like you guys are kind of like business owners and salespeople. It's like the best thing. I wish I would have heard about you guys 20 years ago when I got into sales. Okay. Okay, more money, more income. Okay, now winning. Now, if you answer, I love that, no limits. Now, if you answer that way, because typically when I do keynotes like this, I ask that question. People say that. I love that. And I love that for you. But if you answered more money, more time, more freedom, which I agree, on whom is your answer more focused on? You and your own agenda, or your potential customers? You see, you're not in sales for you. You're not in business for you. You're only in business and sales for other people. So the first principle is to find and help other people solve their problems. Now, do prospects in your industry have problems?
Yes.
Raise your hand if your prospects have problems. Okay, grab a pen and a piece of paper. I want you to write down, you better be on your toes, because I'm going to come out here and start asking a few questions, make you feel a little uncomfortable. I want you to write down the 2 biggest problems that your prospects have. I'm going to give you 27 seconds. Write down the 2 biggest problems that your prospects have. The 2 biggest problems that your prospects have. I'm counting down. 2 biggest problems. Two biggest problems that your prospects have. Got it? Somebody tell me your two. Why don't you tell me? Hey, microphone. What's two biggest problems?
Lack of disposable income and lack of control over future expenses.
Okay, that's valid. Somebody else on that table. Pass it around, baby. What you got?
Electricity bill?
What?
High electricity bill?
Okay, that's a problem. Yeah. Doesn't seem like I'm sure the utility companies are going to start lowering the rates.
Knowledge.
Okay, good. What else?
Unreliable grid,
Okay, good. Okay, this up. Look, you go ahead.
knowing who they can trust.
Okay, good. You. Two biggest problems.
Not having an asset that they can take and make it to produce for them.
I like that. Now, raise your hand if your solution solves those two problems that you wrote down. Raise your hand if your solution solves the problems that you wrote down. I better see every hand raised, okay? You see, there's never been a product or service that mankind has ever invented that didn't do what? Solve a problem and or an emotional need. Do Ferraris, a $500,000 Ferrari solve a problem? Not really. Because if you want to go from point A to point B, you can drive a 2004 used Honda, right? But a Ferrari does what? Solves an emotional need. Because maybe they grew up really in a bad neighborhood. They weren't shown the people they grew up with. They arrived, they had success. Maybe they grew up and their dad said, you're never going to amount to anything, so they want to prove their dad wrong. Maybe they want more status in their community or their business world. That's why they buy the $500,000 Ferrari. It solves an emotional need. Now, the great thing about your industry, it does both. It solves problems that you just said, and it solves emotional needs. What are some emotional needs it might solve? People want to help with the environment, with the climate, so they feel like they're part of something. It solves an emotional need. You have both of those. Take advantage of that. Now, okay, I went back here. Where was that? Okay. Now, here's the question I'm going to ask you that I want you to think about. Really think about this. If you're, because what I think I hear all of you saying is that your prospects have problems and your solution solves those. So if your prospects have problems and your solution solves those, then why are they not buying from you? What's the missing link? The missing link, trying to butter me up over here. The missing link is not your leads, even though sometimes you blame it on our leads. It's not your mindset. It's not that you don't meditate enough or journal enough. It's not that you don't read enough personal development. It's not that you're not motivated. It's not that you don't even work hard. Who in here works hard? Oh, so it's really none of those things. Now, before I make a suggestion of what it could be, can I ask you a really obvious rhetorical question? Raise your hand if you want to triple your income that you made last year, this year. You want to triple your, I mean, that's an obvious, right? That's pretty obvious, right? You want to 10x. Oh, we got some big fingers in here. Now, keep your hand raised if you can triple the hours you work per day. You can triple the hours you work per day. I guess some of you only work 1 or 2 hours a day. So you can't really triple your hours you work per day. You already work 8 to 10 hours a day, I'm assuming, right? You said you worked hard. So if you're already working 8 to 10 hours a day, are you going to work 24? I don't think you're going to last that long. So if you want to triple your sales, if you want to triple your income, what do you have to do if you can't triple your hours? You have to learn more advanced skills than what you have now. It's as simple as that. Because if you say the same things you did last year, this year, if you ask the same questions with the right tone, what result will you get? Probably the same, just gonna go out on that. So once you change certain things that you're saying, once you change certain questions, once you learn the right tone, what becomes possible for you? Anything. You can make 2, 3, 5 times. Let's say you're making $150,000 a year, you're just a salesperson, starting off. Make $150,000 a year, this next year you can make $450,000. Let's say you make $250,000 a year as a salesperson, next year you can make $750,000. Let's say you already make $500,000. You can make 1.5 this next year, even without a team. We have clients in your space that don't even have the leverage and teams you have that make over $1 million a year in commissions just going door to door selling solar by themselves. That when they started were like about to quit. Okay, now let's talk about this. Who likes to read books in here? Raise your hand if you like to read books. I love reading books. My first sales seminar that I went to, I think this was like 2001 or something. I'm so old. It was right after, see, I got hired in those door-to-door programs. You would work 3.5 months in the summer. It's like a summer program where you're in college, and then you could go to school the rest of the year. Just work 3.5 months in the summer. And I went to this event with Brian Tracy. Anybody know Brian Tracy? Okay, I love Brian. I'm really good friends with Brian. When I started my company 7 Level 4 years ago, Brian and I made my first product together. He had followed my career for 17 years. I'd done somewhat decent, a few people would say. And I made my first product called the Ultimate Coaching Masterclass with Brian. And from that very first event, I remember one thing that he said that stuck out. He said, use your car as a university on wheels. And from that day forward, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I'm not going to listen to CNN anymore or Fox News, or I'm not going to listen to Britney Spears or my favorite rap song anymore, because how many of those things make any money? Oh, zero. Right. Oh, that makes sense. So from that day forward, I started listening or reading to 5 books a month on sales, persuasion, influence, times 12 months a year. That's 60 books a month times 22 years. That's 1,320 books on sales, persuasion, and influence. Actually, this month I'm going behind. I've only done 2, so I'm going to have to cram here the last couple of weeks. Now, a lot of people say, Jeremy, how do you do that? How do you read 5 books a month? I don't. I typically read about 3, and then I listen to about 2 while I'm just driving around running errands. Okay, that's how I acquire knowledge. That's simple. Now, every single book I've ever read, and that you've probably ever read as well, says what? You have to be a problem solver. Who in here has read a book or program says, you got to solve problems? You definitely have to solve problems. But there's one little catch. You can't be a problem solver until the prospect does what? Purchases your solution. How do you solve a problem if they don't buy from you? You can't, right? I mean, let's just be real, right? I know it sounds good in the books, but you got to be a problem solver. Well, yeah, once they purchase, you can solve the problems. In your case, once the panels are on the roof and you've got an authorized agreement, you're solving their problems. So if you want to crush sales, if you want to be really, really good at what you do, you now have to be better at problem finding. Write that down. Problem finding, where it's at. Now, what does problem finding mean? That means asking the right questions at the right time in the conversation that allows the prospect to find problems and challenges they didn't even realize they had. Now, is everybody with me? Typically, even if you get on Zoom, because I know a lot of you do virtually, some of you do door-to-door, even people that book on your calendar to get on Zoom, as you know, a lot of times don't even realize they have a problem. Or maybe they kind of know they have a problem, but they don't really understand the depth or how bad that problem really is. Or maybe they don't understand the consequences of what happens if they don't do anything about solving that problem. Now, through your advanced questioning techniques that you can start learning today, we're going to talk a little bit about. I'm going to give you little nibbles, little hors d'oeuvres. If you follow me around, I always say hors d'oeuvres and nibbles. Don't laugh. I know some of you are like, oh, you're going to give me some nibbles today. We're going to give you some nibbles. Through your advanced questioning skills, we're going to show you how not to only help them find one problem, and how you're going to learn much more advanced skills where you can help them find 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 other problems they didn't even understand they had. Because if we can't help our prospects see in their own mind what their problems are, and that's not by telling them, because if we tell them, what happens? Goes in one ear out the other. You're biased, you're a salesperson. But our questions allow them to tell themselves. And once they tell themselves, is that the gospel over you telling them? It's completely different. It changes the game. Now, let's move on. Now, what are most salespeople? I know. Don't be angry at me. Most salespeople, even though we don't think we are, have been trained to be product pushers. We're trained to ask a few logical-based questions. What problems or challenges do you have? If I could cut your bill in half, would you be interested? And then we do what? We go into our pitch, talking about the features and benefits and how we have the number 1 this, and we have the best this, and we have the best this, and the blah, 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 blah. That's like taking a bucket of mud, throwing it up against the wall, hoping and praying that something we're going to say or something we're going to show them in our slide deck or our presentation is magically going to cause the prospect to want to buy from us. And I call that hopium. It's a drug that so many salespeople take, where we just hope and pray that something we say, some one-liner, do you want to install Friday at 4, Monday at 3, is magically going to cause them to want it. And it's such a hard and unpredictable way to make an income and a living in sales or as a business. Kids, if you want to be in the top 1%, if you want to make hundreds of thousands more than you did last year, don't do drugs. Don't take the whole picture out. It's not good for you. Okay, now, step number 2. Let's get into some more tactical training here. It's just basic stuff. All right. Step number 2 is asking the right questions, but at the right time. Now remember, let's go back. Remember, I was majoring in behavioral science and human psychology, which is the study of the brain and how we make decisions. How a human being is persuaded to do something and or not doing something. Now, check this out. This is kind of neat stuff. I geek out on stuff. According to behavioral science, there are 3 forms of communication. I would suggest that you write these down, because once you understand the differences and where you are now, even if you're number 1 compared to where you could be, it will completely change everything for you. Now, area number 1, the first mode of sales or selling. I'm not going to give you the scientific term, it sounds weird, but if I said the words boiler room selling, what's the first image that comes to your mind?
Salesman.
Ben Affleck, if I said the words boiler room selling, what's the first image that comes to your mind? Would it be this? This show? Wolf on Wall Street, right? Hey, I got a great opportunity for it. We talk about the features and benefits, and we push and we pressure and we get the promotion. According to the data is just pesky. The facts are just so pesky and facts are, I don't know. So we're the least persuasive when we tell people things, or we attempt to dominate them, or we attempt to posture them, show them you're the authority figure. Well, you can, it's just not very persuasive, trying to manipulate them, try to push them, okay? It's just like if you told your spouse or your teenager, son or daughter, they really, really need to do something, and then you try to pressure and push them, what do they typically do back? What, really? So do you think that somehow it's different with your prospects? Oh, so it's the same possibly. Oh, wow. Okay, now, I'm going to give you a few of the least persuasive ways to sell. And don't get angry at me when I show you this. I know. I show this to some people like, Jeremy, get out of the room, presenting. We've all been taught you have to have an amazing presentation, all the slide decks, and here's our corporate office, and look at the nice windows, and here's a picture of our founders, and they have the most integrity, and this is our mission statement, and it's so beautiful, it's got the nice purple background, and here's our customer service, JD Powur Awards, and we were doing this and doing that. And then somehow, we magically think that they care about that. I know we care, but why do we feel they care? Now, just so you know, I wanted to tell you something. How many salespeople that you talk, well, we say we have the best this, we have the best that, right? We even talked about that in the beginning. How many salespeople do you know that have ever tried to sell you something that said, Jim, our service is the 7th best in the market? Amy, our product is the 4th best overall. Nobody does. They all say, what? We're the best. We're the number 1. We're the market leader. Just so you're aware, your prospects actually trust you less when you say things like that or you talk down about your competitors. Why is that? Because they're used to every single salesperson that's ever sold them anything, from a vacuum cleaner to a car to a home to cybersecurity to their company, saying what? We're the number 1 market leader. We're number 1. We're the best. And so because of that, they associate you with what? Every other salesperson's ever tried to sell them something. Do you want to be associated in that group? Probably not. Just going out on a limb. Now, here's the problem with that type of thinking. Typically, we train 158 different industries. Okay? Solar's probably in the top 25 that we train. So I know your industry fairly well. Typically, in this industry, in any industry, the average salesperson presents about 50% of the time. According to the data, we have to get that down to about 10% of the time. That's a whole other train right there. All right, what about telling your story? I'm sure you got a great story, got a great vision, but when you're selling one-to-one, guess what? Nobody cares about your story. Whose story do they care about? Their story, magical. What about giving a sales pitch? We've all been taught we got to give a great sales pitch. Who in here watches Shark Tank on CNBC? Damon John, Mark Cuban, Barbara, Mr. Wonderful. I want you to watch when the entrepreneurs come out and they start pitching and they're really enthusiastic and excited. Well, you ever watch the Shark's body language? They're like, oh, we even have shirts for our clients that say hashtag ditch the pitch. We gotta ditch the pitch, all right? Putting sales pressure on them. Raise your hand if you're guilty of this. Okay. There is a massive difference. I know it's not your fault, but it is your problem, right? There's a massive difference between putting external sales pressure on a human being compared to getting them to feel so much internal tension from where they are compared to where they now see they could be that they feel like they have to change. Once you learn that alone doubles your income. We'll talk about that here in a minute. And the big one, assuming the sale. What, Jeremy? I was taught that I have to assume the sale. Well, you can, but according to the data, very low on the persuasion poll. Hence, that's the term where the term, I believe, sales is a numbers game came from. You know why it's a numbers game? Because of the way we communicate triggers our prospects to go into fight or flight mode, and they try to get rid of us, even though they have problems and they show up on Zoom. All right? All right, let's go into some different stuff. Now, step number 2, or error number 2 of selling is consultative selling. Who in here has heard of consultative selling? Okay. All right, we've heard of that. Now, we're more persuasive when we attempt to have a conversation. Okay, consultative selling came out in the 70s, early 80s. Companies like Sandler Institute, Sandler Method, spin selling, raise your hand for spin selling. Neil Rackham, college professor, never sold anything, by the way. But he taught that you needed to ask logical-based questions to find out the needs of the client. But what's a potential downfall of only asking logical-based, we call those surface-level questions? Well, what type of answers are your prospects going to give you in return? Surface-level, logical-based answers. And human beings buy on logic or emotion. Emotion, brain studies prove that. There's no debate in behavioral science on that. So once again, more persuasive than the first motive, telling your story, pressuring them, but you're still going to play the numbers game because very little emotion is brought up by simply asking logical-based questions. This is why you can never sell to just the needs of the client. Blasphemy, Jeremy. Let me repeat myself. You can never sell to just the needs of the client. You know why? Because most of your prospects don't know what they need when you first start talking. You ever heard that from Steve Jobs? Let me give you an example. What's your name? Dude, love it, man. I love that jacket. Can I buy that from you afterwards? It's really cool. I like it. It's cool. And I'm serious. I like coats and stuff. Okay, so this is just for 10 purposes that I'm going to use this analogy on you. So it's not real, but let's say you wake up tomorrow morning and you're like, oh my God, I got to get on those appointments, but I have got a massive headache. I've got such a migraine headache. Oh my gosh, I need to go to urgent care to get some medicine because that's what I think I need. And you're like, well, my budget's $75 for a copay, $25 after insurance. I'm going to need a $100 budget. You then go to the doctor, Shaquan, and she starts asking you some very pointed questions about the pain and what the pain feels like and how you got the pain. When did it start? How does it feel? What is the pain causing? What is it preventing you from being able to do? And her questions start to get you to think in your mind, you might have a much bigger problem than you originally thought you had. And then she says, hey, you need to probably get a CAT scan. And this is just pretend, it's not real. And you get the CAT scan. I did this one time, she's like, oh my God, you're putting the universe on me. I'm like, no. And you get the CAT scan, and it comes back that you have a brain tumor. And not only that, you have a terminal brain tumor, and you've got 60 days to live. And oh, by the way, the surgery is going to cost $3 million, and your insurance only covers 80%.
No.
So now your budget's what? Like $600,000. But an hour before, you thought you only needed a $100 budget. So if the doctor had sold you what you needed, you wouldn't be around, right? That's why you can never sell. This is pretend, all right? That's why you can never sell to just the needs of the client. You have to sell to the real problems that you help them find. See the difference in that? All right, now, I'm going to give you some examples of some consultative questions from your industry. Now, we train a lot of salespeople, several companies in your space now. So I see a lot of these scripts from your salespeople come across my desk and our sales trainer's desk. And there's some interesting ones. But here's a few questions that you probably want to stay away from. And these are not even bad. These are just kind of like surface level. I've seen some interesting ones before. Okay. John, let's say you're on Zoom. John, if you could change one thing about your bill, what would you change? A lower bill? That's kind of an obvious rhetorical question, right? You want to stay away from questions like that because your prospect knows what? It's pretty obvious. Stay away from questions like that. I'll show you to rearrange that. If I could cut your bill in half, would you do it? On the doorstep? And they don't even listen to you and slam the door? If I could show you a way to save thousands, would you sign today? On the doorstep? These are questions you don't want to use. They don't help you. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, for sure. Show me. Yeah, I'm wide open. No, you don't use those type of questions. Now, error number 3. Let's move on. I'm running out of time. They're going to kick me off stage. Error number 3 is dialogue. Okay, according to behavioral science, we're the most persuasive when we allow others to persuade themselves. Now, write this down. This next words. When we ask what are called neuro-emotional persuasion questions. That stands for NEPQ. Now, how do we get a human being to persuade themselves? That's the $1 trillion question. Can you imagine if you had that skill set, that much more money, that superpower? Okay. Who in here wants to learn how to do that? No, I'm really serious. Not this table back there. They're good. They don't want to learn. They don't learn how to persuade people. They're good. They don't need to make it more. Okay, good. All right. Because can you just show up and say, hey, Jamie, just go ahead and persuade yourself and go and authorize the agreement, and then we'll have it installed here in about 3 months. You good with that? Okay, good. Yeah. You can't do that. No. You have to learn specific skill questions in a step-by-step structure that takes your prospect on a journey to get them in their emotional state and start to build a gap from where they are compared to where they now see they can be and how much pain they've seen from that. I'm going to show you how to do that. Even in solar. All right. Now, here's what I want to specify. When I'm talking about NEPQ questions, I'm not referring to questions that are designed to get people to say what you want them to say. Those are manipulative questions. Your prospects are much smarter than they have ever been. They're more cautious. They're more skeptical than ever because they're constantly being sold to all of the time. And when I say that, they're like, no, I'm not being sold all the time. Oh, really? Because when you wake up in the morning, besides going to the bathroom, what's the first thing you do? You grab your phone and you do what? You get on social media and you start seeing what? Ads trying to sell you something. Then you walk into the kitchen, you start to pour coffee, you're like, I've got some appointments. You turn on the TV and you see what? Commercials trying to sell you something. Then you get in your car to go to that appointment or grocery store. You turn the radio, you hear what? Ads trying to sell you something. And oh, by the way, there's these things on the left and the right of the freeway called billboards. And what are they trying to do? Sell you something. And then at work, you get, at lunch, you get back on your social media and you notice your aunt is pitching some new, latest, greatest thing that she's involved in now. So you're being sold to all the time. And because of that, especially in the last 20-some years, human beings have built up what? Walls of resistance. That any time there's like this little word or something you say, it just triggers the wall. You get triggered too, don't you? Okay? Do you think your prospects get triggered? If you get triggered, I'm just going out on a limb there. All right, now, this is the structure of NEPQ. Sorry, this is a little bit lower than what it's supposed to be, but NEPQ, all right? Now, these are the 5 stages. I'm going to give you some examples of these. Now, we train a lot of salespeople in your space, okay? Not even, like, I don't know if we train a company that has like your leverage and all you guys do that I'm learning about, but these are just salespeople that go door to door, they get appointments, and they just sell for a company. They don't really have teams. And those salespeople, when they came to us, usually were making $3, $4, $5 grand a month. And we've got hundreds, if not thousands now, that make 30 grand a month, 50 grand a month, 80 grand a month. Some that actually make over 100 grand a month just as a salesperson. Who in here wants to see some NEPQ specific questions for your industry? Possibly? Okay. All right. Now, before I do that, here's one thing I want you to think about. Within the first 7 to 12 seconds of any conversation you're ever going to be, whether you're on the doorstep, whether you're in a home, whether you're virtually on Zoom with the prospect, your prospects are picking up on social cues from you. They're picking up on your nonverbal and your verbal cues and your body language if they can see you based on what you were saying and or asking that triggers their brain to react in 1 or 2 ways. That's it. React in 1 or 2 ways. Now, if you come across aggressive, like overly excited, no pun intended because we train a lot of used car dealerships, but like a used car dealership, right? You know the type, the slick person. If you come across aggressive, if you come across needy, you can tell when you're needy, can't you? You can tell. I know. Be real with yourself, right? When you come across attached, like you need that sale. What happens is it triggers your prospect's brain. If you don't understand the right questions, if you don't understand the tone, it triggers their brain to go into what's called fight or flight mode. Who in here has heard of fight or flight mode? Now, who in here knows how it's caused? Oh, see, it's a triggered reaction. Because does your prospect wake up that morning, they're like, what's your name? You know, I've got that appointment on Zoom at 3:30 with Lucio. I think about 2 minutes and 45 seconds in, when he asked me that question, I'm going to go into fight or flight mode, and I'm going to say, enough with the questions, just tell me what you got, and I'll tell you if I'm interested. Do they think that the morning? Or was there something you said or how you said it that caused that? See, once we understand that we have full control of our prospects going into fight or flight mode, and we know how to get them to not do that, selling becomes really simple at that point. If we don't, then we're just hoping, we're taking the opium drug. Okay? Now, and they say, okay, I'm not even going to go through these objections. You guys hear these all the time. Let's roll through this. Now, once you learn what we're going to show you, I'm just giving the tip of the iceberg today. Once you learn how to become more neutral, more unbiased, you're not quite sure if you can even help yet. You don't know anything about what their situation is in the beginning because you have no trust or credibility. Once you learn how to have what I call collective confidence, you come across more in a calm manner. And you come across, especially, this is the key word, detached. And you understand the right questions to ask, you understand when to ask them. It triggers the brain to become curious enough where they want to engage. They want to open up to you because they feel like you might have something important for them. They don't know what it is yet, but what you've done is you've triggered them to let their guard down. We're going to go over that in a minute. Now, connecting questions, okay? Let's talk a little bit about these. I'm going to pull up a chair, because when I show you some of these, I'm going to sit down and show you the tone of how to do this. Am I okay on time, or are you kicking me off the stage right now? I can stop everything right now. Should I just stop?
Go. Don't go.
I mean, do like California, so. Okay, so connecting questions is where you take the focus off you and you put it on the prospect. Now, when I'm referring to these questions, this is not a connecting question. Raise your hand if you ask this question when you get on Zoom. How are you doing today? How's your day going? Raise your hand. Be honest. I bet everybody does this, don't you? Okay? When you get on Zoom, or an ACS call, how are you doing today? How's your day going? Guess how the prospect interprets that most of the time? I'm trying to get you to like me so I can sell you my product and service. How do you interpret when a salesperson talks to you? How are you doing today? How's your day going? How's the weather over there? Oh, did you watch the game last night? Oh, I love baseball too. This is what goes through your brain, doesn't it? They're trying to get me to like them so they can sell me their product, their thing, right? So, why do they do that? Because every salesperson that's ever tried to sell them anything asks what question? Do you want to be in that same category in their mind at the very beginning? See, what happens with a lot of people, unless it's like a laydown sale, oh, I'm running out of time. Unless it's a laydown sale, is it triggers them to emotionally shut down. And then they stay surface level with you, and you ask good questions, and you know what happens? They give you 3 or 4 word answers, and what objection do you get at the end? I need to do more research, I need to think it over, whatever. See, that's a triggered reaction. All right, so let's give you an example of what to do here. I'm gonna have to hurry. They just said, you're running out of time over here. I saw it up here. Okay. Okay, so let me give you an example of this. I'm gonna give you a little thing that you can do. So let's say that you get on Zoom, okay? How do you get a prospect to pull you? I'm just gonna give you a little trick here. It's very simple and stuff. So they're like, Jeremy, how are you doing today? Let's say they say that to you. The prospect says that to you. Instead of like, oh, I'm just working hard. Now let me ask you. You just avoid it. You just say, oh, just hanging out. Being boring. What about you? What's going on in your neck of the woods? Oh, just hanging out, trying to stay out of trouble. What about you? Oh, I'm sure you're not in trouble. Oh, just hanging out, being the boring guy. What about you? Oh, I'm sure you're not boring. What did that just do? Yeah, got him to pull me a little bit. If I'm bald, anybody bald in here? I wish I was bald. I would totally use that if I was myself. Here's what you do. Oh, just surfing the web, looking for a better hairspray for my hair. It's just not working. Oh, yeah, my elbow just went bald. He says, see, you automatically get them to pull in. Just little stuff like this, okay? All right, let's keep moving on. All right, let's say that you have an inbound lead where you're on Zoom, Let me give you this example. So you get on there, can you hear me? Okay, good. Okay, so it looks like you had booked on the calendar about possibly looking at ways to lock in your rate and save money on your electric bill, right? Now what did that first question start implanting in my prospect's mind? Well, yes, but not really that. Remember, we're not selling the thing, we're selling the what? The results of what that thing does. See how I'm already getting them to think results-based thinking over price, debt, or cost-based thinking. I'm automatically doing that from the very first question out of my mouth. I'm getting that frame already in their mind. See how we're saying? Now, I've explained more, but I'm running out of time. All right. Now, situation questions. Now, that's just that's just one kind of example here. So there's, right after that question, there's usually another connecting question you have to ask. I don't have time to give that to you, but now you have to set a frame, because they have to know there could be a possible next step. So you say this. So John, and listen to my tone. And try to slow it down. The first part of this call, I mean, it's pretty basic. It's really more for us to find out, more about who you're using, like your usage, like what type of rate hikes they've been making you pay compared to what you're trying to get the bill down to, just to see what the gap looks like, to see if we can help. And then towards the end of the call, if you feel that that it might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. Would that help you? Now, let me analyze what I just did there, okay? The first part of this call is pretty basic. Why would I downplay the call? Why would I be like, I'm so excited you're on the call, Bill? Because I want to get them to let their guard down, right? Because they're used to every salesperson really believing in the product. And that doesn't mean you don't believe in it, but you're just calm and collected. You're an expert. You're not needy. You've got lots of clients. It's really more for us to find out about who you're using now. Depends on your state, if you'd say that or not. Their usage, what type of rate hikes they've been making you pay. Now, what does that do? What type of rate hikes they've been making you pay? What's visually going on in their mind? Nobody likes to pay rate hikes. See how I'm building a gap already? We're talking in the first 45 seconds, I'm already getting a gap in their mind. Rate hikes have been making you pay compared to what you're trying to get the bill down to. See what I did there? Compared to trying to get the bill down to, just to see what that gap looks like. See what I just did in those 5-6 words? Now, towards the end of the call, if you feel that that it might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. Would that help? No, it would not help me to talk about possible next steps. See, they can't say that. But if I'm on with an A-type personality and I said, at the end of the call, if you feel this is a good fit for you and we feel it's a good fit for a company, we're going to show you what to do next. Well, hey, I didn't say I was buying it, I'm still looking around. And now I triggered what? Resistance. Now you have to compete with that the rest of the call. Why do you like competing with resistance? I just don't like resistance. But if I just change the words to, towards the end of the call, I feel like it might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. Would that help? Yeah, that would help. You never have resistance. See what we're doing? Just a few words that are changed there. Now you have to come across confident when you say that. You can't say, and then towards the end of the call, if you feel kind of like it might be what you're looking for, we can hopefully talk about next steps. That's not going to work either, right? We have to be collected and calm. All right. Situation questions. These help us find out what their real situation is. We call that their current state. Because before we can build a gap, what do we first have to do in the prospect's mind? We have to get them to understand what the real situation is. Because if we can't help them see where they're at, it's impossible for us to what? See where they want to go. So we have to understand their situation. More important, we have to get them to understand what their real situation is, okay? Now, let me give you a few examples of this. And now, this could be, there's other situation questions you have to ask, but I'm just going to show you a few examples. Now, walk me through. Who are you using now for your electric? Oh, okay. Now, let's say you're in a place where there's only one provider, and you know that. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they know that, just so you know. They don't just sit around thinking about their utility company every day, right? Do you? Before you got in solar? Probably not. Now, who are you using for your electric? Oh, XYZ Energy. And what was the main reason you chosen as your electric provider? Now, notice how I said that. Did you see how my tone was a what? More of a curious tone. And how I slowed down. Oh, I didn't have a choice. Are you opposed to homeowners having a choice? No, not at all. Now, look how I said that. If I said, are you opposed to homeowners having a choice? Well, no, not of course. Knee-jerk question, knee-jerk reaction. But because I slowed down my tone, what does that do in their mind? It causes them to think deeper about what I'm asking. Are you opposed to homeowners have their choice? No, not at all. That's more of a concern tone right there. See what I just did there? How I downplayed that? That triggers them. Like, no, I'm not opposed. Okay? All right, let's keep going. Okay, well, how it works when it works, and just so you know, I'm not sure we could do anything yet. Like, I'd have to know more about the roof and home first. But instead of you having to buy like a $30,000 solar panel system, we're able to offer you the electricity the panels produce, and that electricity, it just costs far less than if you were to buy it from like a utility company. Now, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves though, because some people, there's not much we can do. I should probably start out by asking you, your electric bills, can you tell me a little bit more about those? Like, I know a lot of the year they're pretty low, but what have they gotten up to recently? Now, why would I downplay your electric bills? I know a lot of the year they got pretty low. Why would I downplay that? Because they say, no, you have no idea, they've gotten really expensive. See how human behavior works? But if I'm like, oh, now tell me about your bills. I know they're really, really high. Oh, they're not that bad. Because they know you're trying to sell them something. But if I downplay it, they upplay it. See how we're working with human behavior? Isn't it so much, it's like a fresh breeze, California breeze. I come in here, just like, I love the breeze. It just feels good, right? It makes them feel good. Like, what if they raised your rates in the last like 6 to 12 months? Let's say if they say, I don't know, well, I'm not really sure. Then maybe you show them a bill. Let's say if you're in California here. Yeah, I mean, if you look here at the bill, this is from your neighbor over here, Bill Smith. His bill went from 13 cents a kilowatt to 28 cents a kilowatt in the last 3 years. So it's not horrible. It's just a little bit more than double the bill. What? Double the bill? Are you kidding me? Yeah, I've seen that. Downplay it, they upplay it. Now let's say you're in an area that's not the case, okay? Because I've got that from a couple of our clients here in California that told me that that's what it went to. Hopefully that's accurate, I don't know. They're like, if you're in a different state and that's not the case, yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I mean, in your area, it's only gone up 7, 9, 10% a year. So it's only like 37% in the last 3 years. What? Are you kidding me? That's horrible. That's the reaction you get. When you downplay it, it's not that bad. They're like, what? That's a lot, okay? All right, let's keep going. Now, problem awareness questions open the emotional door to the prospect. What the real problems are, what is the root cause of the problem, and how are the problems actually affecting them? Now, in this example, let's say that you're knocking on doors to set appointments, okay? Anybody here knock on doors to set appointments? Okay, or let's say you had an in-home appointment, they bailed or whatever. You're like, I'm gonna knock some doors to set appointments. So after connecting in situation questions, which you have to tweak those a little bit that I just showed you there, we want to set that appointment, we have to get them to what? See that they have a problem. Because why would they show up to the appointment if they don't really feel they have a problem? Just because you like solar, they're gonna show up? No. Or you're gonna show up and their wife just got home, they're like, oh, we're not interested. And they don't even know what happened, right? So if I can help them identify a problem, that increases the show-up rate. We've calculated, I don't know what your show-up rates are, people with door-to-door, but we've taken door-to-door companies that would have like 80% like no-show rates, like where they would set appointments and 70-80% wouldn't show up, and we've gotten that down to 10 to 15% by just little things like this, okay? So you go through so after you've gone through the rate hikes, you're like, oh yeah, it's really bad. So besides having to pay the rate hikes, do you like how things are going? And what tone is that? Skeptical, concern, right? No, not at all. Or this one actually works the best for your story. So this is after like they find out like, oh my gosh, it's gone up by 9% a year the past year. So do you want to have to keep paying the rate hikes if you didn't have to? Oh, hell no, if I didn't have to. Notice how I said that. If I said, do you want to have to pay the rate hikes if you didn't have to? Well, yeah, see, my tone. Do you want to have to keep paying the rate hikes if you didn't have to? No, not at all. Okay, well there's a possibility we could do something. Now, I'm not quite sure how much we could save you, and I want to let you know, I think we'll be able to save you some, but I don't know what that would be yet. So what I can do with your permission is set up an appointment to come back when your spouse is here later this afternoon, just to see if this would work for the home and you guys. Would that help you if I did that? See how I did that? Okay. Now, give you more examples, we gotta hurry. Inbound leads. So now, I'm gonna actually skip this because we're gonna run out of, actually no, you're gonna like this. I can't skip it. I'm gonna be selfish if I skip this. Oh my gosh. Okay, so after you ask them, do you want to pay the rate hikes if you didn't have to? No, I wouldn't. Here's an inbound lead example. Can I ask you, something in regards to like your power company use without you getting upset with me? Oh, sure, I wouldn't get upset with you. See what I just did? Can I ask you something about your power company use without you getting upset with me? No, I wouldn't get upset. What does that do? Pulls you in. See what we're doing there? These little things. All right. So if the utility company knocked on your door today, and this is kind of a cheesy question, and let's say they gave you the option to like lock in your rate for the next 25 years where they never raised it. And right at that 25-year mark, they then said, hey, you're a valued customer, you never have to pay another bill again. It's completely free. What would you tell them? Oh, dude, that would be so awesome. I would tell them I'm in. Now let's pretend for a second they come back 3 years later. Then they try to convince you after they've locked that rate, so you're paying $350 a month now, and they come back and it's the same every year, and they come back and they're like, hey, and they start to persuade you to get back on the old plan, where they then can just raise your rate every single year to whatever they wanted, like they have been with no end in date, and they say, you gotta pay this until you die. What would you tell them? I would tell them to get the hell out of here. See what I just did there? So how long have you been having to pay the rate hikes like that though? Geez, we've noticed that on our bill like several. Having to pay that, has that had an impact on you? What do my tone look like there? Sound like? Concern for them. See how that works? All right, I'd love to explain more of that. We don't have time. Solution awareness questions help the prospect see what their future is going to look like once all these newfound problems that they didn't even know they had before they got on Zoom with you, now they understand they have. So we want situation questions. What is their current state? Solution awareness questions. What is their objective state? What is the gap? All these newfound problems that your question ability has allowed them to see very clearly they had. They didn't even know they had before they talked to you. Now, let me give you a few examples. So let's say, and now there's several solution awareness questions you have to ask before this. So don't just like put this together and be like, it didn't work. Well, you're missing like 80% of the pie here. I didn't have time. Let's say that we're able to lower your rates permanently like we do for other clients, where let's say over the next 20, 23, 25 years, I mean, you're not going to save that much, probably $18,000, $20,000 or so, besides just saving the money, because everybody comes to us for that. How do you see solar benefiting you the most though? Well, it benefit me because I want to do this and I want to do that. Or a lot of times they'll be like, are you kidding me? That's a lot of money that I would save. See, you're not going to save that much. It's only going to be, what? That's a lot of money. See, I downplay, they upplay, okay? Now, then they're like, oh, I would do this, I would do that, or I'd feel good about, protecting the environment. Okay, you being able to help, like do your part, what would that do for you personally? Now, why did I ask that question? Because the question before was a logical-based question. When I asked them, how do they see the benefits of solar? Well, it benefit me because of this, this, this. That's all logical, right? But for them to buy, we have to do what? Emotional. So then you being able to do that, what would that do for you personally? See how I verbal pause there? Okay? All right, let's keep going. Consequence questions. I wish I could give you more. Help your prospects see what the consequences are if they don't do anything about solving these newfound problems, all right? Now, let's say that you're selling to somebody in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. Some of you, I think you sell like PPAs, they call PPA and stuff like that. Some of you guys do that. Okay, I'm giving you an example from that, just so you know, okay? So what happens if you don't do anything about this, and they keep raising your rates every year like they have, and now you're like 75 or 80, have to pay your bill every month, but now the bill is more than 3 times what it is now, but now you're on a limited income. What happens then? Or how would you pay for it at that point? Well, I don't know what we do. Well, what would you do? Do you want to have to go through that if you didn't have to, George? See how we do that? See how they now start to think what? Oh my gosh, when I'm retired and on a limited income, my bill's going to be 4 times. How am I going to pay it? Do you think there's a sale there? Now, if I told them that, what would they do? One ear out the other. You're biased as a salesperson. My questions allow them to tell who that? Themselves. Is it more persuasive when you tell them they should do something and they tell themselves you should do something? See, what we're doing with these questions and with our tone is we're guiding them in the direction that helps them solve their problems. And they feel in complete control. They feel like you understand their unique situation more than anybody else they've ever talked to, and they just met you for the first time 22 minutes ago. Anybody want to know how to do that? Okay. Now, we don't have time to go through presentation stage. We have all that in our training. But commitment questions. Help the prospect commit to take the next step, purchase what you're offering. You can lean in, give you a few examples. Do you feel like this could be the answer for you? Now, you're going to get one or two reactions. Yeah, I do, or yes, but, and they're going to tell you the real concern. Because do you want to know what the real concern is while you're there on Zoom or in person or on the door? They're going to say, yeah, I do. They're going to say, yeah, but, and then they tell you their concern, and there you're there to help them overcome it. Let's say if they say yes. Okay, so what specific aspects of going solar do you feel like is really going to help you the most? Well, I like this, and I like this, and I like that, and I like this, and what is going on at the gap? See, they're giving themselves 4, 5, 6, 7 reasons why they need to go solar, whereas right now, you're just talking about one reason, saving money. And if do your installs get installed the very same day where they can't cancel? No, they don't. They get scheduled out, right? How many weeks on average? Months. Do you know why you have so many people cancel that you thought were all in? Because you tried to push it on them externally and try to present facts and logic, and then when you left, where did all that go? Out. But when you get them to feel that it's their idea on why they feel like they have to have solar, guess what happens? They all get installed. We've quite literally taken companies, I don't know what your rates or what your cancellation rates are, that have installs out a month, 2 months, 3 months, that were having 50% cancel and got that down to 8 to 14%. Imagine if I don't know which major rates are better, but they were like, oh my gosh, we're really rich now. Okay, or this question. But why go solar? Why not just push it down the road and keep paying the rate hikes like a lot of people who don't know anything about solar? Why would I say that? So why go solar now then? Now you say this at the end. Oh yeah, I feel it would be what I'm looking for. Okay, but for you, why go solar now? Like, why not push it down the road and keep paying the rate hikes like a lot of people do who don't know anything about solar? Now what's going on in their mind now? They know about solar now, don't they? So now they're like, well, I'm not going to pay the rate hikes. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to do that. Is that person going to be there 2 months later when they get installed? 100%. All right, now, let's go to step number 3, and I got to fly through this. Eliminating sales resistance. Now, step number 3 is probably the most important aspect you have to master. And that's about neutralizing the hidden sales pressure that's in your conversations that you're having with your prospects. Now, raise your hand if you've heard of the ABCs of closing. Everybody raise your hand. Come on, everybody in sales heard that, right? Alec Baldwin, Glengarry Glen Ross, put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers. How can I'm going to show you something. Listen to what I do here. How can I communicate to you that the ABCs of closing, that mantra, closing, 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 is actually causing you to lose deals that you could be making? How could I communicate that to you without you getting upset with me? See what I just did? Okay. Now, if you want to master sales, here's one thing you have to understand. Top 1% salespeople that make hundreds of thousands, if not millions a year, understand that selling is not adversarial. It's not you against the prospect trying to win them over, manipulate them, push them, and pressure them so you make money. That's what average salespeople do in our day and age. This is not 1985. Prospects are far more sophisticated than they've ever been because of the power of the internet and social media. If you want to be amazing, make 2-3 times what you are now, we have to understand that selling is collaborative. It's you working with the prospect to help them find and solve problems they didn't know they had. Now, do I mean you get at the end, you're like, well, hey, if you're interested, just email me back. Is you going to close a lot of deals that way? Do you think I made multiple 7 figures a year when I was a W-2 rep saying, hey, yeah, just call me back if you want it? That's not going to work either. That's not what I mean. Okay, I just want to make sure somebody said that. Like, what? Okay. So if you want to be great at sales, you have to follow the ABDs of selling. You change the game. We don't follow the ABCs of closing. Closing is something you get them to do, not something they do at the end by asking them an option close. And that stands for always be disarming. How do we trigger them to let their guard down and become open to what we're offering? Because when you detach yourself from the expectations of making the sale, guess what happens in their brain? It removes the pressure from that conversation, and they become comfortable with telling you the truth. And you automatically build trust. And is trust where the sale's made in our day and age? Okay? All right, now, I'm gonna skip this part here because they said I've only got 8 minutes. All right, now, let's try something here. Can we try something here? Okay. Somebody come up on stage with me that I have. No, not you, because I think you already know some of my stuff. You're cheating. How about you that I had that first question? Remember I said, why should I go with you? I want you to come up. Are you cool with that? Okay. Yeah, if you're a client, you can't come up here. You already know what to do. Or you kind of, you're learning what to do. All right, can you hold that microphone? And sit down there. Hopefully I can see this. Okay. So, remember when I said, why should I go with you? Okay? Now here's one thing that we have to understand. When the prospect says that, how do we disarm them? So let's say that let's say you get on Zoom and they're like, hey, I'm still looking around companies, like, why should we go with you? Or let's say you're on the door, like, hey, I'm looking around, but tell me, like, why should I go with you? Has anybody ever got that objection? Yeah. Okay. Instead of trying to convince them why they should go with you, why not find out what's behind the question? Why are they even asking that question in the first place? What would most salespeople do? Well, the reason why you should go with us is because we've been the #1 company in the state. We can save you the most. We can do the same thing cheaper. We've done the most installs in your area. We've got the best panels. They're the XYZ, blah, 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 manufactured here in the U.S. We got the best this, the best that. Wah, 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 wah. That's what the prospect hears, right? So why not find out why they even ask you the question first? Like, what's behind the question? Why not learn how to get them to let their guard down? So when the prospect says that, let's try something else. You want to role play here with me? Okay. Just tell me, like, why should I go with you, and I'll do my best to see if I can see this. Okay, ready? Sit right there so I can look at the screen. I don't have this memorized. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Just tell me that. So why I'm looking at some other companies. Why should I go?
Why should I go with you?
Well, I'm not quite sure that you should yet. You know, we'd have to understand. We have to understand a few things more about like your usage and the type of rate hikes that they've been making you pay over like the last 12 months compared to what you're trying to get the bill down to, just to see if we can even help, because you know maybe you're better off staying with your power company. For example, how long have you been in the home using XYZ energy? Just stop right there. Okay, let's do that again. Let's role play again. My mouth's all cotton mouth. Do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at solar, but why should I go with you?
Well, I'm not quite sure that you should yet. You know, I'd have to understand a little bit more about like your usage and kind of like the rates, you know, the rate hikes that they've been making you pay compared to what you're trying to get the bill down to, just to even see if we could do something good, because you know, maybe you're better off staying with your power company. I should probably ask though, like, how long have you been in the home using XYZ energy? Just stop there. Now, what did I just do there? I'm not quite sure that you should yet. Now, what does that do in the prospect's mind? Yes, you can even tell in his body language. I'm not quite sure that you should yet. Now, do I know that we can help them more than the power company? Yes. Do they know that in the first 30 seconds? No, because you have zero trust and credibility at that point. So I know, 4 minutes, 50 seconds, say, oh my gosh. I know I have to get them to let their guard down, or it's what? Over at hello. Now, by the end of that conversation, I'm going to help them build such a gap from where they are compared to where they want to be, that by the end, what do you think they're going to feel like? That it would be crazy to stay with their power company. But they don't know that in the first 35 seconds. So I have to disarm them first, okay? All right, let's do another example. Just stay up here for a second. Okay, in this example, let's say that you sell, I think it's called PPA, right? And let's say you knock on the door and they're like, solar, not interested. Whoever gets that goes door to door. Solar, not interested. I know you guys get that, all the sorts. So they're, what do I say when they say solar, not interested? Well, a lot of them say, well, if I could just have 2 minutes of your time, sir, to show you how we can cut your bill in half, would you be interested? Slam, okay, it's over. So I have to get them to what? Let their guard down. Okay, so let's just say solar, not interested.
Yeah, sorry, solar, not interested.
Oh, yeah, I can appreciate that. And to be frank, it hasn't been worth being interested in. You know, too expensive, takes forever to get your money back, doesn't even save you that much. Now, our clients would say, like Bill over there, we're talking the other day, our clients would say this is a bit different, and it may not even be for you, Travis. But instead of you having to buy like a $30,000 solar system panel like a lot of your neighbors did several years ago, we're able to offer you the electricity it produces, and that electricity, it just costs far less than if you were to buy it from like
Duke Energy. Now, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because I don't even know if that would work for you. I'd have to know more about like your usage. How long have you been in the home using? See what I just did there? I just agreed with them. Look how I just agreed with them. Oh, I can appreciate that. And to be frank, it hasn't been worth being interested in. It's too expensive, takes forever to get your money back, doesn't even save you that much. You can say, oh my God, I can't save that to them. Well, if I can't get them to let their guard down, are you going to make a sale there? No. But if I agree with him and then say, our clients would say, use third-party validation. Even if you have a neighbor, our clients would say it's a little bit different. Here's what we're able to do, blah, 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 blah. And then they're just right into it. Now, do we know we can help them more than the power companies? Yes. Once again, in the first 5 seconds, does he know that? No. We have zero trust or credibility. So we have to get him to let his guard down, and then by the end of that conversation, we build a gap, and then by the end, Travis is very happy that he decided that solar is way better for him than paying the rate hikes. See how that works? Okay, good. Now, I'm going to give you a few more examples in the last 2 minutes and 45 seconds I have. All right, now, who in here gets an A-type personality that just doesn't want to open up on Zoom? Stay there for a second. You get an A-type, you ask them really good questions. Am I allowed to go like 2 minutes over?
Yes.
Is that you guys being Woo! Okay. So let's say you have an A-type hardcore personality. Who in here gets those A-types? You hate those A-types. You're like, how do I sell those A-types? They just like throw it in my face. How do we do that? Well, how do you get them to open up? Because you know, if you ask questions and the pressure of those minutes, guys, I know I'm hurrying. And you pressure this. So let's say that at the end, you can't get them to open up. You ask questions, they give you 3 or 4 word answers. What objections do you know you're going to get at the end of that? I want to think it over. I don't make rash decisions. I need to keep thinking. I need to keep looking around. So you have to disarm them. Okay? So you're going to lean in. You're going to say, so you're going to be like, so between like you and I and now this is on Zoom. You do it on Zoom. Now between you and I and like off the record, what's the main reason you're looking to possibly go solar rather than just keep paying the rate hikes? Don't say anything. Let's go this way. So John, between you and I and off the record, what's the main reason why you're looking to possibly go solar rather than just keep paying the rate hikes? Now, let's say you say like, I want to save money. You say, I want to save money.
Save money.
Yeah, and a lot of people want to save money for sure. I mean, but saving money for you, like in your situation, is like, why so important to you now?
Inflation.
Meaning?
Just everything costs more.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm tired of, paying increased prices for everything.
sure. Yeah, a lot of people say that to us. Okay, see how I did that?
Yeah.
Let me go back. I want you to write this down. So you say, between you and I, so it's us. Between you and I and off the record. Do this. Off the record. What is that? It's off the record. Now I can tell Jeremy the truth. I'm off the record. See how I do that? So John, between you and I and off the record, what's the real reason you're looking to possibly go solar rather than just keep paying the rate hikes? Notice I ended with what? The consequence. Rather than paying the rate hikes. See how I'm adding that in to what I'm offering? Okay, let's go one more and then we're going to end it, all right? Now you say save money, and we said that's just a probing question there. Now, who in here gets a prospect that says, I need to think it over? You don't know how to overcome it? There's a whole nother training on that. We don't have time for that today. This is your last ditch effort. If you don't know how to overcome it, you're not in our courses where we teach you how to prevent it. This is your last thing you can do. So, okay, you're like, tell me you want to think it over. Put over here, I got to see this. I don't have all this memorized.
Yeah, I want to think it over. I need to do some more research.
Yeah, not a problem. Now, between you and I, though, and off the record, what's really holding you back from moving forward so you're not forced to pay the rate hikes like a lot of people are? Don't say anything. Let me do that again. So, yeah, no problem. I mean, between you and I and, off the record, what's really holding you back from moving forward so you're not forced to pay the rate hikes and you can start saving money? What did I do there? I tied in what to what? Moving forward with what? Solving the problem. See, I'm always tying that in, okay? Let me give you another example, okay? Same thing. So, no problem. I mean, between you and I and off the record, what's really holding you back from moving forward so that you can save money and then lock in your rate where it doesn't increase? See how I'm tying in them moving forward with what? The result. Remember, we're not selling the thing, we're selling the results of what that thing does. All right. Here's what we're going to do. Thanks, Travis. Thanks for having me up here. All right, so remember real quick. I'm way over time. I've hustled there. I skipped a lot. Remember, we went over becoming a problem finder and problem solver, not a product pusher, asking the right questions at the right time. I gave you a little nibble today. I gave you a few of those. Okay, I gave you probably about 5%. And then asking the right questions at the right time. Okay, what are the right questions, the right time, the right tone? And then how do you trigger them where they let their guard down? Okay? Now, if you want to start learning more about what we do, we're going to give you a couple of free hors d'oeuvres, little nibbles. Some of you guys always make fun of you there. All right, so go ahead and go here because I'm going to take this off in about 5 seconds. Go to our Facebook group, salesrevolution.pro. Got about 50,000 or so people in there last year. Probably at least a few thousand in your industry. Salesrevolution.pro. We go live in there 3 or 4 times a week, different Q&As, different trainings, basic stuff. And then follow me on Instagram at Jeremy Lee Miner. Make sure you follow the right account. There's all these spam accounts. IG's the only social media platform that won't verify us. We got verified on Facebook in 2 days, YouTube in like 2 minutes, all these other ones, and then IG's like, nope. I'm like, wait a minute, Facebook, you own IG. Well, how do we get verified on Facebook? We can't, I don't know. But make sure you follow the right account. I think we have about 270,000 followers on that account. Make sure you follow that one. And then you want to more advanced training, because in that stuff, we give you basics, little hors d'oeuvres. You want more advanced training that's more industry specific for your industry, like our clients are in. You can always reach out to us. I've got one of my account executives back there, Yash. And you can always message us in the Facebook group or IG as well. Thank you very much. Give me a hand, everybody. Let's give them a huge hand. Come on, everybody.